Hello, I'm Jonathan, and here are the fantasy series I'm going to be reading next year because fantasy is better than science fiction. Hey, they're in here. They're fantasy fans and they've got a gun. Sorry about that. I'm Jonathan, and here are the science fiction series I plan to read in 2026. Because as we all know, sci-fi is the best fi. Now, some of these series I am going to be starting, and some of them I am going to be continuing. And for each of them, I'm going to let you know roughly when I might try to plan to read them and how high they are on my priority list. So let's get into it, starting with my number one priority, The Gap Cycle by Stephen R. Donaldson. Angus Thermopyle was an ore pirate and a murderer, so when he arrived at Mallory's bar with the former police officer Morn Highland, almost everyone stayed out of his way. But one person wasn't intimidated. Nick Soccorso had his own reputation and his own sleek frigate fitted for deep space. It was a common enough story of rivalry and revenge, or so everyone thought. The real story was something entirely different. So this one is set in stone, it's locked in the schedule, and it's actually a read-along with my friend Josh from Red Fury Books. We actually chatted a little while ago and came up with some ideas on what we might like to read for a buddy read, and we settled on The Gap Cycle. And what was mildly interesting and coincidental about this was about a month later, I went to the Hugo Awards Worldcon in Seattle, and I was lucky enough to win one of the lottery selections to do a workshop with Stephen R. Donaldson. So that made me even more excited to get into this series and try it. I believe it is a space opera, has a grimdark tone. So this is not for the faint of heart. This might not suit everybody, as I think it kind of goes to some dark places. Donaldson himself even said that he kind of got uncomfortable writing his own material during this series because he wanted the audience to have skin in the game, not just for us to think, oh yeah, those guys over there, they're bad, trust me on that. Like, no, you wanted to feel the stakes, the weight of the situation. So we'll see if I like it. The schedule plan is Book 1, The Real Story, in January. Book 2, Forbidden Knowledge, in February. Book 3, A Dark and Hungry God, Arise, in March. And then seeing as the last two are a little chunkier, we'll give you 2 months each for each of those. So Book 4, Chaos and Order, in April and May. And then the final book, Book 5, This Day All Gods Die, in June and July. So if you're interested, feel free to join us. Go follow Josh and dive into the deep, scary. Oh, I'm fumbling my words already. The Scary World of The Gap Cycle by Stephen R. Donaldson. And just a quick disclaimer, I'm not someone that really DNFs books. Since starting this channel, I've only ever DNF'd one book, and there was a family blood feud involved, so it's not a common occurrence. But when it comes to series, I am faster to drop a series after a book or two if I'm not enjoying it. I'm not going to read another 3, 4, 5 books. It's just too time-consuming if I'm not having a good time. So I'm going to let you know for each of these series kind of how committed I am to reading the entire series based on whether they're new, how high priority it is, and if I've started the series before. So for The Gap Cycle, my promise to you is I will at least read the first 2 books. And I haven't told this to Josh yet, so sorry, Josh, if this makes me a bad buddy read partner. If I just at least like one of the first 2 books, I will continue. But if I don't like either of the first 2 books, it's just too many pages, too much time to continue going. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think I'm going to like it, and I'll let you know sort of what my expectations are for each of the series. All right, up next, we have Saga of the Pliocene Exile by Julian May. In the year 2034, Theo Kadarian, a French physicist, made an amusing but impractical discovery: the means to use a one-way time warp to a place in the Rhone River Valley during the idyllic Pliocene epoch, 6 million years ago. But as time went on, a certain usefulness developed. The misfits and mavericks of the future began to seek this exit door to a mysterious past. So this will be my first time trying Julian May. I haven't read anything that she has written before, but I believe Jimmy from the Fantasy Network read this, or at least the first book, and I remember he enjoyed it. And I do like time travel. I like epic time scales, so going way back into the past or future is something that always grabs my attention, and I do like a ragtag group of characters. I hope this group of misfits and whatnot that get together are characters that I can become invested in and enjoy their their journey, and it does seem to have a little bit of a fantasy aesthetic to it, so hopefully there's enough sci-fi in there to satisfy my preferences. So let me know if you've read this one and if you think I'll enjoy it. I think I'll plan to read this one maybe later in the year, after the gap cycle. I don't like to have too many series going on at once, unless they're the type of series that you can pop in and out of. But we'll see. If a lot of you guys are interested, then I might bump it up the schedule. Okay, for our third series, we have the Vorkosigan Saga by Lois McMaster Bujold. And for this one, I'm going to give you the blurb of the second book, and I will explain why in a moment. Between the seemingly impossible tasks of living up to his warrior father's legend and surmounting his own physical limitations, Miles Vorkosigan faces some truly daunting challenges. When Miles unexpectedly finds himself the owner of an obsolete freighter, he forms his own mercenary fleet to obtain a lucrative cargo, a shipment of weapons destined for a dangerous war zone. So there are 16 primary works in the Vorkosigan Saga, and I have read one of them, so this will be my second attempt to get into the series, and the book that I read was The Vor Game, which was not a good idea. So here's what happened. This was before I started BookTube. I didn't maybe do enough research as I should have done, although I did do a little bit, because Bujold herself said that you can start anywhere, and the Vor Game was a Hugo winner, and the premise sounded pretty good, so I thought, why not start here? Well, first of all, it's kind of a stitch-up novel. It was like a novella that was expanded, so it felt a little bit disjointed, especially if you're not already familiar with the characters and the world, and some of my friends that are Vorkosigan fans, like Bengus and Jake Bishop, they roasted me for this, and rightly so. So do not do what I did, and do not start with the Vor Game. So where should I start? Book 1, obviously? Maybe. I've been told that most people either start with Book 1, Shards of Honor, or Book 2, The Warrior's Apprentice, because Shards of Honor is kind of a prequel and doesn't feature Miles, who is the main character in the series. So I've decided to go with The Warrior's Apprentice for 2 reasons. One, because this series is mostly about Miles, I want to get to know Miles' story, I want to become attached to Miles, and I think that will make me more motivated to continue with the series rather than starting with the prequel. Also, I believe it has a slightly higher average rating. People seem to like The Warrior's Apprentice more. They rate it more highly. So I think that might be a better place for me to start, because if I read the prequel, Shards of Honor, and I just think it's okay, I just know myself and I just know I'm not going to continue. Even if everyone says the rest of the books are great, and they are great, I'm just going to think, well, I've tried 2 and neither of them really hit for me. I'm just going to move on to something else. So this one needs to be a hit, this one needs to be a winner, and I think The Warrior's Apprentice is going to be a winner. I'm looking forward to the kind of charming characters, the amusing dialogue, the fun space adventures, the politics, all that kind of stuff that this series is known for. So if you're a Vorkosigan fan, let me know, have I made the right choice, or am I making a second blunder in attempting to get into this series? All right, next up, we have a series I'm quite familiar with, and that is the Revelation Space universe by Alastair Reynolds. So I've already read the original Revelation Space trilogy, but I'm going to give you the blurb for Book 1, Revelation Space, just to help keep it spoiler-free. 900,000 years ago, something wiped out the Amarantin. For the humans, it's of little more than academic interest, even after the discovery of a long-hidden, almost perfect Amarantin city. But for scientist Dan Sylvestre, it's more than merely intellectual curiosity, and he will stop at nothing to get at the truth. So Alastair Reynolds is one of my all-time favourite writers. I've read 8 of his books, including 5 from his Revelation Space universe. I've read the original Revelation Space trilogy, Revelation Space, Redemption Arc, and Absolution Gap, as well as the prequel Chasm City, and the first book in the Prefect Dreyfus Emergencies, Aurora Rising. So what I want to do, and this is pretty high on my priority list, I want to finish the Prefect books, I want to read Elysium Fire and Machine Vendetta, and then I want to read the 4th Revelation Space book that he wrote about 20 years after the original trilogy, Inhibitor Phase. So those 3 novels I'm definitely going to read next year, and then if I have time, I'm going to get into some of the short stories and novellas within that universe, so I can say that I've read all things Revelation Space. So why should you join me? Well, in my opinion, Revelation Space is space opera at its best. The scale and scope is epic. The ideas are amazing. Reynolds is just a really creative and imaginative writer, and he leans a little bit more towards the harder end. So if you like some of those sci-fi concepts, technical ideas, and descriptions, then I think you're going to like his writing too. And I think the plots are really satisfying. The characters are pretty decent as well, and the Prefect Dreyfus Emergency series, sub-series that I'm reading, adds kind of like a detective sci-fi element to it as well. So if that's something you're interested in, then check out that sub-series. Probably the next one that I pick up is going to be book 2 in that sub-series, Elysium Fire. So read Aurora Rising before the end of the year and join me for Elysium Fire in 2026. And lastly, we have another series I'll be continuing, the Xeelee Sequence by Stephen Baxter. A spaceship from Earth accidentally crossed through a hole in space-time to a universe where the force of gravity is 1 billion times as strong as the gravity we know. But somehow the crew survived, aided by the fact that they emerged into a cloud of gas surrounding a black hole, which provided a breathable atmosphere. And 500 years later, their descendants still struggle for existence. So here's another series where I maybe didn't start where I was supposed to, but if you're allowed to represent myself in YouTube court once again, it was a patron pick. The 4th book in the series, Ring, was picked as a patron pick of the month, and it was a great pick. I absolutely loved the book. I looked it up, and Stephen Baxter said he wrote all of the books to be able to be read on their own, so I thought, sure, I can start with book 4. And then I did a little bit more research into the series and found out, well, book 2, Time Like Infinity, kind of sets up some things for book 4, Ring. So I then read Time Like Infinity, and I loved that one too. And I think you could read them either way around. I think there's pros or cons to starting with Ring or Time Like Infinity. I'd probably go Time Like Infinity just because it's shorter, and I think it's a good way to get a taste for Baxter, but I don't think it's a mistake either way. But now I love Baxter. I think Baxter is great. He's probably one of the only authors that I can think to that really compares to Alistair Reynolds. So these are 2 of my favorite authors. I want to read more from them next year. And I'm going to be doing what a lot of people probably think I should have done and start with book 1, Raft. So I'm going to be reading book 1, Raft, and then book 3, Flux. And then even though I'm not super into short stories, I do prefer novels, I'll probably pick up book 5, Vacuum Diagrams, which people do seem to rate very highly. People seem to like that one. And then we'll see, because there's quite a lot in the series. I think there are 17 books in the Xeelee Sequence. But those first 4 are kind of known as the Xeelee Omnibus. There's an omnibus edition of them. So those 4 plus Vacuum Diagrams, I think, kind of form an arc, a story. Let me know if you're a Xeelee expert, if that's true or not. And then if I'm still just loving them, I might start to continue with the series. But those are the ones that I'm prioritizing for next year. So who do I think will like Baxter? Well, that is hard sci-fi fans. Baxter is definitely toward the hard end of the hard sci-fi spectrum, and I love it. Even though his books can be a little info-dumpy, there's quite a lot of exposition, some explaining. The ideas are just so cool and interesting. I don't mind that it's a little dry at times, because to me it doesn't read that dry. But if that's not your preference, this might not be the author for you. If you're trying to get into a little bit of harder sci-fi, especially harder space opera, I would recommend trying Alistair Reynolds first. He's kind of like medium hard sci-fi. And then if you like that, try Baxter, who is hard sci-fi. So there you go. Those are the 5 sci-fi and 0 fantasy series I'm going to be reading in 2026. Let me know if you're interested in picking any of these up, or if you've read them before, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash or just gently click the subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed it, consider checking out the perks of becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima, a New Eden, Half-Ogre, Zakawe, Samil, and Colin. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.